everybody. This is Colleen with Speaking of Spirits, and I'm here with Susie and Kate and Gina. And we're noshing as we're podcasting this time because we were just starving and had to. So we are doing like a haunted location. And we all picked a different location to talk about. Mine I can't pronounce, so I will slaughter it. But do you want to go first?
No.
No?
Let's have Katie.
Oh, yes.
She was super
Voluntold.
Yes. She ever feel motivated.
So in 2015, we went and visited the Shanghai tunnels in Portland. And I think those are really cool. So for people who don't know the history, these tunnels were used to kidnap, usually men, and sell them to ship captains or whatnot as slaves. So they estimated about 3,000 people a year from 1850. They said it continued all the way until the 1950s, so for almost 100 years. I don't know when the height of the 3,000 people a year was, but so there's that. They have opium dens too. There's prostitutes, women and children being kidnapped. Just basically any of the shady business in the city happened.
So describe how they would get shanghaied.
So they would either be drugged, they would be knocked out.
So would they visit like the opium dens, or were they?
No, so those were underneath in the tunnels. So they would be in like saloons or other businesses. Yeah, so the other way is they were too intoxicated, and there were trapdoors in all these establishments. So once they got someone, they would lift up the trapdoor, push them into the tunnels, and they would wait in like a jail cell kind of room until people were shuffled onto the ships. And then once they got on the ships, they were basically presented with a paper. Either you sign this and work for me, or you go over. So you
got
had
a
no
hell of
choice.
an option.
Yeah.
So, okay. How long were they ever set free?
I'm sure eventually, or like when you had to make port. I wonder how many were able to escape. I don't know that information, how many were able to get away. But so these tunnels, historians debate how much actually happened down there. We do know about the Shanghai, but the rest is kind of debated. But when you go in, these tunnels have mostly been closed off, but a few businesses have renovated them so you can go down and see what happened, or like just see what it looks like. And it is heavy in there. And a lot of investigators say they've seen people with scratches, being pushed, non-human entities, which I think is very interesting because I don't hear that word being thrown around very much with paranormal groups. But
well, I'm wondering what's the source of the haunting? Do you think they were overdosed?
I think people were overdosed. I think people were killed. I think people were raped.
Yeah, I say the raping and
yeah, I think there's just a lot that happened down there. I think most of the illegal activity, like Portland was notorious for being one of the most dangerous cities at that time. These tunnels, and most cities have these tunnels underground. Like even I had a story of the ones in Blackfoot, which is kind of more funny, but
they were on a port, so it was great access to ship them down to California, where maybe they would be utilized for slave labor or whatever.
Yeah, and these tunnels were originally built to help funnel in sailors and product without clogging up the city streets, but just ended up turning out to be something else because there's no one down there regulating what's happening. So,
yeah, my stepmother grew up in Portland. And so she talked about going in the tunnels a lot and on the floors and
so it's like mainly this pizza place. I don't remember the name. I'll tell you right now. But they're the ones who kind of started it, or that's where the main spot where you go to. But you only can go in so far. They have it really blocked off. It's all cemented and walled up. So. But you can feel the energy, and it feels very, very heavy, very dark. So,
did you experience anything?
I didn't at the time, just besides that feeling. I didn't experience anything. A lot of people also see an apparition of a lady with blonde hair that was murdered down there.
It's a loud cheer. Sorry.
Yeah, so there's just a lot to it, and it's hard to know what is true and what's not true, but a lot of stuff did happen down there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't done the tour. I'd like to see it. It would be interesting. Yeah.
It'd be cool to be able to do an investigation.
You bet. You bet. Yeah. You want to go next?
Sure. So what I was going to talk about today is Edinburgh, Scotland.
Nice.
I was there in 2018 with 3 of my good friends, and we had all kinds of experiences. So one of the ladies, while you stayed in these, like we stayed in B&Bs. We didn't do hotels. We wanted to be with the people.
Yeah.
But we all stayed near to Old Edinburgh. We switched a couple different places. But you go in, everything is built up and down. If you've seen pictures of any of the UK, really.
Right.
Because there just wasn't space. And so it was 5-story buildings, this, that, and the other. And they would have these staircases. And of course, we would never book on the main floor because I always tell you it's more dangerous, at the street level or whatever. So there'd be these big railings of spiral curved staircases and different things. And people would have their bikes chained to like the banisters. The one place we were staying in and we're coming out. And again, there was 4 of us. The last one of us, which was Dawn, got shoved on the stairs. And luckily we were in front of her because she could have went down the whole entire flight of stairs. And we're all like, oh my gosh, are you okay? Did you lose your footing? And she goes, no, something shoved me in the back. And it was like, oh my gosh. So that was one of the experiences. The other one we went to, it was an awful. The first night we got there was an earthquake that hit Wales, which was about 32 miles from Edinburgh. And apparently the next place we went to had damage to where it put out the pellet light of the water heater in the furnace. So we got there and there was no water and there was mice. The one person with us, like her mood, her demeanor, her disposition, it was kind of off a little bit the whole entire time. But she got so angry and so mean that I was like, it was almost like she took on another personality. And after we got back home, she was like, I don't know what came over me. But she goes, she started smoking again. She just was mean with the things that she said. And when we left Edinburgh, it kind of all, when we got back to Idaho, it kind of all simmered down, and it made me wonder if there wasn't something that she absorbed or picked up on or something.
Some attachment.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, it was the cemeteries. I love every place I've traveled around the world. This country, I love the cemeteries. I don't like to be at funerals at cemeteries. I really struggle with that, but I love going through and looking at the headstones and feeling. So this isn't so much a haunting as it is what a coincidence, and I don't believe in those. So I had a friend that was here, and they're like, hey, while you're there, see if you can find any of my family. And they gave me their last name. And first one, it was called Cannon's Gate or Cannon Cemetery, that was at the bottom of the Royal Mile that comes from Edinburgh Castle down to the water. So we go in there, literally, we go in, I walk forward to this headstone. It has the same last name. I'm like, what do you know? Last name was Calder, just if anyone's curious. And I was like, holy moly, this is so funny. So I take a picture of it and I send it back and I'm like, hey, guess what I just ran into? Possibly some of your family. Ended up, I found out after we got home, it was his family. However, it wasn't related on his side, which was the Calders. It was related on his mother's side, which it was like one of those intermarried things, but it was his mother's family. So his mother had married a Calder, or his mother's family had married a Calder, and his mother had married a Calder here. Oh. So it was, but yeah, they were DNA relative, or blood relatives, but it wasn't down the Calder line. It was down his mother's line. And just the weird thing where his mother married a Calder and this relative married a Calder. Mm-hmm. And to just walk up on this headstone. So one of the other interesting things that happened while we were there, I'm not really techie. I use the basics of my very old cell phone. But we walk in, I'm a psychic medium, and so I feel things. Like I said, I walked in, that was the first headstone I went to. They have these, for lack of another word, they're kind of like our mausoleum looking things, but it's not a closed off building, but it's usually got 3 or 4 walls. Some of them have like what you would see on a patio where it has beams and then a ceiling, but it's open. And most of them are in metal. Some of them actually have a ceiling. Some of them are open on the top. Some of them have a gate, but they're not shut off. And they have these around the outside edges of a lot of the cemeteries. So we're walking around looking at them. And I have this thing, I've heard it called being a slider, but you touch things and it makes them react weird through the energy, the electronics, whatever. Yeah, I can be in a grocery store and I'm on the little stupid credit card thing and I have to pick up the pen because it won't read my finger or my fingers will cancel it. They're like, we're sorry, that was canceled. So I'm there and I'm trying to get pictures and it wouldn't take pictures. My phone died. My phone actually shut down all the way. Everybody's like, well, you probably just need to recharge it. I'm like, it was fully charged. So the whole entire time we're in there, my phone, first it wouldn't work, then it was dead, like shut off dead, couldn't start it. So we finally leave there and we're walking back up the Royal Mile and we decide to go into this Mexican restaurant to have lunch. So we go in there, we sit down. My phone in Edinburgh. Yes, it was amazing. We had the best Mexican food, the best pasta. And the pasta was from a family that was some type of Middle Eastern. And I can't remember the country that they were from. So it was really funny.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but it was an awesome Mexican restaurant. So I get in there, we're sitting down and my phone's like, it kicks up like I just pushed the button to restart it, totally restarted, came on, was fine, took pictures, went back through. I had pictures on my phone from that cemetery that didn't show when I was trying to take them, but they were there. So that was interesting. Then we went in the tunnels. There's tunnels underground in Edinburgh. They actually, people lived there at some point.
What an existence.
There were businesses down there because they couldn't afford the street prices, this, that, and the other. So that was really cool. I didn't experience a lot down there. I thought I might, but at that point I was a little guarded with everything. But it was crazy to think for hundreds of years, either people were living in those tunnels and they were very long under Edinburgh, or they had businesses that you would go down there and there would be a blacksmith and there would be a person selling produce or whatever underneath in these black tunnels. And they showed us they would turn the lights out, pitch black. So we end up going to Greybriars Church Kirkyard, they call it, which was the cemetery where J.K. Rowling's got her inspiration for Harry Potter. There's a little, it was called the Red Elephant. I believe they've had a fire since, which seems like a really weird thing, but a lot of places I visit, they have a fire afterward. I didn't do it, but it's just weird. It happened to us in New Orleans. We went to Bertle's Plantation, and like a year later, their restaurant burnt down. It was weird. But anyway, so we go into this Kirkyard, the cemetery behind. That's where she found a lot of the names. That's where they did some of the filming, like when he was finding his parents' graves and different things like that. It was unusual because you kind of went in and then it dogleg. And as you went down the dogleg, you could look right up and see the Edinburgh Castle. And the one side was this rickety fence, tall wooden fence. We didn't think much of it other than there was this fence. We just figured it was blocking it off from the neighborhood or other businesses or whatever. After we got home, it was something different we found out, but I'm not going to go there. So we were going more into these mausoleums. I think I talked about this a little bit, about getting body slammed by the one guy that was guarding the mausoleum. So I went and sat back down, and we went, after everybody else went through, I decided to walk away from them because I crossed a boundary. In case you guys haven't seen the other video, we came across this one and we wanted to go inside. Again, it was just the 3 solid walls and the front was like 3/4, like there was a doorway left open. I kind of parted the energy and said, we're just looking. We think it's beautiful. No disrespect. We just want to walk in and look. And we did. And then when we left, I put the energy back, turned around, and a linebacker from the NFL in America, you know, in the United States, tackled me pretty much for trespassing, I'm guessing. Never had that happen in my life. Most of them are a little afraid of running up on me, but it kind of took me aback a little bit. So I let my friends wander off and I went and sat down. But after we got done, I walked back over and I was like, you know, I'm out here and then there. Who really? But it was such a cool cemetery because they had this, they called it herb garden, but they had these big sections and they were growing all kinds of healing herbs and you could pick them and take them. So guess what we did?
Yeah.
And we brought home seeds, and one of the gals has cultivated some of the things from that garden. But it was very interesting because the first night that we got to Edinburgh, we went on the tour that took us down into the tunnels, but we started in the square. And back in the day, the square was where you went with your family on Sunday to watch the executions. It was a big day. We had picnic. We watched. So we go up there. There's like 50 people in our group. We're standing there and she goes, today we are executing a witch. We're having a witch trial. You are the witch. And my friends bust out laughing. I'm like, of course I'm on trial. Why wouldn't I be? Everywhere I go, when they do these things, for some reason, everybody picks on me. So they went through, they beat me, they threw food at me, they tarred and feathered me, they executed me, and then my friends had to pay to clean up because that was horrible. So it was pretty funny, but I thought to myself, yeah, Jude in the little mausoleum, maybe you had something to do with that in my past, but guess what? Here I am,
Right.
hundreds of years later, there you go. So it was kind of a neat experience, but the energy when you're in, I mean, here we have lots of old energy, especially with like we were talking the Native American culture, but really, you know, the boats came in 1492. It didn't really get established till 1776.
Our energy is very young.
Yes. I ate in a bakery in Salzburg, Austria once that was built in 1212.
Yeah.
Was still ran by the same family. You had to duck to go through the door because people have gotten taller since. But yeah, that old history and the rocks and just the headstones. We found out after we got home that side that had been blocked off was where the headstones had been with the names that J.K. Rowling had found and used in her books. People kept going there because of that. Because tree branches would break off and fall out of the tree and land on people. Headstones would tip over and crush people. People were getting scratched and bruised and pushed. And so they had to, for the safety of the public,
block that off.
Fenced it off. So that energy, and I can understand it if that's your resting place. But I'm also going to say there's some that aren't resting there. And probably because they lived a really nasty life. The one we went to see had skulls and crossbones. And that was a thing you saw in a lot of the older graves. Those were the people that were studying the medicine, studying the science, like to become a doctor or a pharmacist or a mortician type thing. Potentially could have been the grave robbers or whatever. But for whatever reason, several of them are stuck where they were put. So that was
fascinating.
It was very interesting.
You want to go next?
Sure. I don't have big, out of country experiences or anything like that. I have more personal ones. I have been in a lot of places, but I'm like Gina, wherever I go is haunted. So it really doesn't matter. But one interesting one was, of course, going to Idaho State Pen years and years and years ago. And I had heard it was haunted. I went in the summer, took my kids through it. There was really no one there because it was kind of like almost off season because it's usually more happening around Halloween. Anyway, went through that place, took tons of pictures, went through the laundry/shower room. And there was no one in there but me and my daughter and my son. Yet we could hear someone walking inside the shower room area dragging their feet, and we could hear keys jingling. Well, and we do know that there was one gentleman, unfortunately, that was raped to death in that area. It's a legit thing, unfortunately for him. So we did experience there. We felt a lot of negative energy in the hanging room. That was really intense. A lot of anger and hatred in there. But the most interesting thing that we would find is we felt a lot of sadness. Just sadness. We read a lot of the stories of why people were locked up, which you actually wouldn't be locked up for now. But they locked them up for petty theft or cheating on your husband or swearing or just stupid little things like that. Like the women's side of the prison was really sad. But my interesting experience over there is I went to the cooler. So they have the solitary confinement, but they also had the cooler. And the cooler was just kind of like a cemented dugout area that was all, it's all mortared off and cells and everything. Well, I was in there taking pictures and I heard what sounded like a plastic water bottle move in one of the cells in the back. And I went, oh, really? And so my daughter and I went back there and I snapped a picture on my way and went in there. And of course, there's this little water bottle sitting there. And I was like, so that must have moved. How interesting. Went later, took a look at those pictures, and I have a picture of a gentleman leaning out and looking at us. And if you zoom in on him, he's got his hair combed, all slicked back like the maybe 30s or 40s. He has the blue collar shirt on, and you can almost make out numbers right there, just looking at us. A year later, because I felt a sadness from him, and I kind of felt a slight connection. A year later, we went back again, just for the giggles, went back into the same place. And as I stood quietly into that cooler room by myself, I stood there and I felt his hand slip into mine and just hold it for a second. And once again, I just felt sadness. He didn't scare me. I didn't feel evil. I just felt sad for him. I just tried to send him as much comfort as I could, but I could literally feel his hand in mine. And that's just one of them, but that's might be a well-known haunt that people know about is the old Idaho State Pen.
Mr. Bag.
Who's
Yeah.
Mr. Bat?
You almost got bit by a rattler.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ghost Adventure. Is it Ghost Adventure?
Yes.
Yes.
The dude in Bro Show.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So let's go pick a fight with the spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Everything's
the fake stuff. Yeah,
Get
got it.
possessed and repossessed.
That was the
So
collective out of Europe with Derek.
Oh, yeah.
He killed me. People would say, "I was thinking like, not for me."
So I picked the forest in Romania that I cannot pronounce. It's Hoia, Baciu. I have no idea how to say this, but anyway, it's
Good old HB.
that one. HB over there in Romania. It's kind of interesting that they have found that there's archaeological excavations that showed that there's tribal inhabitants in this forest to around from 500 BCE to 106 CE. So I mean, it's an ancient place that people have lived, right? But very, very haunted, and there's a lot of weird things that have gone on there. From like there's a flock of 200 sheep that disappeared without a trace. Now, Romania has wolves. Romania has things, but 200 at a time?
Yeah.
That's a lot of sheep to go missing like that, right?
Not find anything.
And not find anything. To this day, nobody knows what became of, and the shepherd was gone. Like him and his flock, gone. So nobody knows what happened to them. And I guess the forest bears his name is a chilling reminder. So that's this name, the HB, that's his name.
Oh, wow.
So that was his.
Never heard that before.
Yeah.
I think I'd heard about the sheep, but I'd never heard that.
Yeah. So, but it's considered sacred where nature spirits and ancient gods were worshipped, which that resonates with me, but it's also cursed, and there's like malevolent beings that live there. So there's that dichotomy that goes on here in this forest. And so there's ghostly apparitions, right? Mysterious disappearances, the unexplained phenomenon. And then people who say that if you venture into the forest tonight, you may encounter these restless spirits of the dead. You'll hear whispers carried by the wind, see unexplainable lights hovering in the trees. And then there's this clearing.
It was with the big circular,
clearing, and nothing, no trees will grow there. Nobody, and people who have like camped in that clearing or had fires in that clearing said all kinds of bizarre stuff will happen to them if they're there. Like it is just, I'm like, really want to go to this so bad. So it's really, but it's also supposed to be cursed. Like if you stay in this clearing, that it's not necessarily a good thing.
But
I've heard that they see orbs, they capture voices and stuff. Now, tell me if I'm right. Was it Josh Gates that did an investigation?
I think
What's really interesting is that scientifically they've analyzed the soil in this clearing, and the soil is not conducive for plant growth.
Yeah.
Like right outside the clearing.
Yeah, because
trees,
it doesn't
plants,
grow big
grass
or anything.
No,
it's
it's
grass.
clearing.
Yeah.
And so one of the theories is that it could have been a UFO that came in and changed the matrix of the soil. And it is a local hotspot for UFO sightings. So if you live in this area in Romania, people do see a lot of UFO activity in and out of this forest.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be a place we don't know. Like, if you burn soil look at diamonds, right? You burn coal at a hot enough temperature, you make a diamond. So if something came in, it changed the molecular structure of the soil.
Or contributed some type of discharge from a craft or something.
Some kind of contaminant. You never know. So there was 1960s, there was a biologist who captured a photograph of a mysterious disc in this hovering above this clearing. So there's that. Obviously, this is a rendering, but there's also a young girl who disappeared in the forest to reemerge 5 years later, completely unchanged and the same age. So there's some weird
alien stuff.
That's some
5D stuff.
Weird stuff going on here. People consider it like the boundaries are thin in this forest, and that it may be portals. Yeah.
Well, they say throughout our national parks, they have situations where a person vanishes.
Right.
Sometimes their shoes and clothes are laying there.
Right.
And the person is not.
And they're folded.
And some come back, and some are proceeding.
That missing 411.
The missing 411. Yeah, his segments are just fascinating. Yes. And the clusters that we have all over the world. I mean, starting to map. He started in the U.S., but now it's in Canada, and he's starting to map these clusters. It's really a phenomenon that has no, we don't know what's going on. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the disappearances in Yosemite, they're found hundreds of miles away. And these missing truck drivers are also, we're getting off topic, but found, so they're across the country with no memory of how they got there. But their truck is found like in California, but they're found in New York.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is, a lot of them were blamed on wildlife attack, like a bear attacked them or this. Okay, so the bear undressed them and folded the clothes.
And that's the thing.
Or left their tennis shoes sitting right where, like a walking step. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. In these instances, most of these missing 411 cases, the people are just gone. They're just gone. But their clothes are found neatly folded, or they're just completely just gone, and they were with people.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, they're studying some of the magnetic anomalies, which I found really fascinating. So that's why they're thinking: is there like a portal type thing? There's also, if you look at the trees in this forest, and I know that we have a couple of forests in the United States where the trees do this. And I think it had something to do, if I'm not mistaken, with the wind. But anyway, the trees grow, they come up out of the ground and then they grow like a
Zigzag
C,
over,
and then they go
yeah.
straight up.
Don't they call them dancing trees?
Well, I haven't heard, but I think it had something to do with the wind phenomenon when there were saplings before, but I'm not sure. There's other things at play, but the trees grow like this big. They
Yeah.
come out of the ground, they make a C, and then they go up, and it's just really another bizarre characteristic of this forest that.
Because it's not every forest.
No, it's just this forest around this circle. So it's just weird. Again, could it be the UFO activity? I mean, in and out, maybe it's doing something to, I don't know. It's really interesting. So Destination Truth, Josh Gates, right? Ghost Adventures. Of course, he probably got repossessed in there.
Someone needs to repossess.
Yeah, somebody needs to. But it's a really popular destination. I would love to go see it. Here's see, it's not the best photo.
That's pretty.
Yeah, the trees grow in these interesting shapes.
Yeah.
There's some that are a lot more bent than this, though.
Right. They're like literally, like
Yeah,
a jigsaw.
Yeah. They're really, it's someplace that it's on my list. Like if I ever won the lotto and I could afford to go places, that's what I would do. But
Yeah, we just missed out on that 1.3 billion.
well, I don't know. I had my ticket.
Oregon.
Oregon.
Somebody in Oregon.
Dang it. Anyway, but again, so there's UFO sightings, ghostly apparitions, the clearing, the circle, which, from what I understand and what I read, staying in the circle is not advised. Like camping in the circle, staying in the circle for any length of time, it's supposed to be really negative and to you. And I don't know that like stillness is, but spiritually, it's pretty negative place. So that would be it'd be fascinating to see it. But that's my side.
That's so
That's
cool.
really cool.
Yeah, I do have a friend who, her son lived in Romania for about 25 years.
Oh, wow.
Right next to the castle, and he was a baker, and he just loved it over there. And so he. Little bits and pieces that I've gleaned from him over the years. It's a pretty interesting place. So,
Lands of my ancestors.
the lands of your ancestors. But we hope you enjoyed this segment, and we'll catch you on the next podcast.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Good drill.
You've been listening to Speaking of Spirits, powered by Pocatello Paranormal Research in Pocatello, Idaho. Thank you for joining us today. We're glad you could be here. If you're enjoying the podcast, please do us a favor and go to whatever platform you are listening to the podcast on and give us a review. We prefer the 5-star reviews. This helps us know how we're doing, and it helps others to find the podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you on our next podcast.